Good morning and thank you for coming. It's a very small retreat, but it's not a numbers game, as I tend to say. Uh, I appreciate people who are in new roles. Thank you, Tensos. Thank you, orchestra. um, so this is kind of the highest ceremonial day in our Buddhist lineage. And usually we tell the story of the Buddha, how he sat under the Bodhi tree and reached a great understanding. However, I decided to do something a little bit different, and I wanted to tell you about the stillness that includes everything. Tonight and tomorrow morning, we join a very long line of people who have sat through the dark night, waiting for something that cannot exactly be waited for. Yet somehow it may become clear if we can sit still long enough. The Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree on a night like this, with the same kind of body we have, the same doubts, the same discomforts, the same longing for resolution. He was not a statue or a distant icon. He was a human being who had exhausted every strategy he knew. And when nothing more could be done, he let himself settle into the simple fact of sitting on the earth. Rohatsu is our way of stepping into that story with our own bodies. Every period of Zazen is a reenactment of the Buddha's awakening. Not a symbolic reenactment, but the actual entering into that moment. When we sit down, we sit under the Bodhi tree. The same night, the same moon, the same question that has guided practitioners for centuries. Every period of sitting is another opportunity to live out what the Buddha lived out, not by imitation, but by direct experience. So for this opening of the talk, I want to bring in words from the Shobogenzo. Dogen quotes the old teacher Xuanzha as saying, "The entire world of the 10 directions is one bright pearl." He also adds that this means the entire world is neither vast nor minute, neither square nor round. It is not neutral, not active, and not obvious. Because it is beyond the coming and going of birth and death, it is the coming and going of birth and death. Past days have already left here, and the present moment starts from here. This teaching is not a metaphor. A pearl has no seams. There is no inside, there is no outside. No part of it stands apart from any other part. When Xuanzha says the entire world is one bright pearl, he is pointing to the fact that nothing can be separated. Everything belongs. Every sensation, every thought, every disappointment, every joy, every person, every breath is part of the same shining completeness. This is why this teaching is so important. Rohatsu is the time when we stop trying to sort our experience into piles of acceptable and unacceptable. In this long night of sitting which is ahead, the whole world is admitted. Everything that appears becomes part of the one bright pearl. Nothing is left out. On this coming night, in this room, going toward the moment of the Buddha's enlightenment, I want to be very direct about this. Everyone sitting here, everyone hearing this, is the one bright pearl. Not metaphorically, not as an aspiration, but as a simple fact of practice. When you sit still and let the world come and go, when you stop dividing your life into pieces and time into past and future, the pearl begins to shine in the way you breathe, in the way you notice sensations, in the way your mind settles and stirs. You are no longer looking for the bright pearl. You are it. Of course, the mind does not always cooperate with this. Has anybody else noticed that? The traditional story says that Mara, the Buddha's opponent, arrived to stop the Buddha. In the sutras, Mara appears as an external figure. But we do not need a supernatural being to understand what this means. Mara is the inner voice that tells us to quit. It is the part of the mind that whispers that we are not enough, that we are failing, that this is a waste of time, that we should be someone else by now. This was true for the Buddha, and it is true for us. Mara is fear. Mara is desire. Exhaustion is cynicism, is old wounds, is the ache of habit energy. The Buddha did not fight these forces. He did not argue. He touched the earth. He acknowledged his belonging. He let the thoughts and visions rise and fall without identifying with them. In doing so, he showed us what real courage looks like. He demonstrated that the one bright pearl includes even Mara. The pearl does not dim when fear appears. It simply becomes the pearl that contains fear. The Buddha's awakening was a moment of clear seeing. He saw the whole web of cause and effect. He saw how clinging creates suffering. He saw how the mind builds a sense of self moment after moment. And he saw that nothing in this process was separate from anything else. What looked solid became transparent. What looked permanent became fluid, and he relaxed into that reality. It is moving to remember that he did this alone in the dark. But we are not alone. We sit together, and behind us are generations and generations of practitioners, women and men across cultures and centuries, who handed this practice forward. Mahapajapati and the nuns of the Therigatha, early monks who traveled through difficult conditions, monastics who copied sutras by candlelight, lay people who kept altars in kitchens and barns, teachers who continued to sit even through grief and personal heartbreak. Their steadiness is here with us today. In the Buddha's awakening story, Mara brings armies. He brings his daughters to seduce the Buddha. In our life, Mara brings anxiety that comes out of nowhere. The feeling that other people maybe are doing better than we are. Or we sense that the world is too overwhelming to face. Mara wants to seduce us with possessions and distractions. And we do practice in a turbulent world. Sometimes it feels totally like Mara's domain. Political division, social upheaval, fear about the future. None of this can be kept outside of our practice. We must witness it with diligence. None of this can be kept outside. We cannot lose sight of the fact that everyone has Buddha nature, even people whose actions confuse or trouble us. It is easy to become bitter when outcomes do not match our expectations. But bitterness is simply another form of Mara. Bitterness cuts us off from the one bright pearl. When we sit, we learn to respond without hatred and without collapsing into despair. We learn to stay present with clarity and steadiness. This is where the teaching of the one bright pearl becomes so helpful. The pearl has no preferred conditions. It does not depend on good news or on a sense of progress. It simply shines. When we sit, boundaries begin to soften. The sound of a car passing is not outside us. The discomfort in the knee is not separate. Even restlessness belongs. The pearl is not something we construct. It is what we recognize when we stop dividing the world into fragments. In our one bright pearl, everything reflects everything else. Our lives reflect the lives of those who practiced before us. Our sitting reflects the Buddha's sitting. Our fears reflect old conditions. Even confusion reflects something that wants to be understood. When we see this, even for a moment, something widens. We feel ourselves returning to a larger reality. Our burdens do not vanish, but they stop being so personal, so private. They become part of the shared human experience that all practitioners have worked with, including the Buddha under the Bodhi tree. As we continue through this short retreat, trust the simple act of sitting. Trust the body that has carried you this far. Trust the tradition that has kept this practice alive. And trust that awakening does not require perfect circumstances. It arises only in the middle of our lives, unsettled and beautiful as they are. And the Buddha's awakening was not a supernatural event. It was the realization that he had never been separate from anything at all. And this is exactly what we reenact each and every time we sit down. We take our place under the Bodhi tree. We touch the earth. We face Mara with a clear heart. We let the world come and go. And we let the dawn find us. I would like to close with a poem by Gina Puoro, which speaks directly to the courage and belonging that this night asks of us. The title of the poem is My Courage is a Wild Song. My courage is a wild song that rises in the hollow places where I once believed I was broken. It rises because the world is asking me to rise. It rises because my ancestors leaned close and whispered, "You were made for this." Each time I sit with what hurts, each time I stay with what wants to pull me under, I become more rooted in the truth that nothing is outside the circle. I will not harden. I will not abandon myself or this world. I will keep turning toward what is real, tender and fierce at once, because this is what love looks like when it walks on 2 feet. This is the way my people survived. This is the way we return to ourselves. This is the way we remember we belong. Thank you.